afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Sunil. Welcome to Forex with SK, yet another session. Today, we're moving on. So we'll go through some steps. MetaTrader 4 is an easy platform, but it does have its own separate nuances. And I'll run through and navigate you just so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So just a few things to show you. Before we move ahead, as usual, we have a legal disclaimer. This series is strictly for educational purposes and must not be construed as investment or financial advice. Trading foreign exchange involves financial risk and may result in significant loss of capital. You must consult your financial advisor before risking your personal finances in trading foreign exchange. Trading involves uncertainty. Past performance is no guarantee of future gains, and the views expressed herein are entirely the personal views of the author, me, and I do not consider your personal financial situation. Also, depending on the jurisdiction that you're operating from, please do check the regulatory restrictions that might apply to you because the rules for foreign exchange trading differ in each country. Now, today, I'm just going to show you as a demo, just a few steps once you picked a broker, how you would download the software, install it on your system, then how would you set up your chart preferences. There are a few color schemes that help, how to create and save your preferred templates, learn how to install and amend indicators, get familiar with entering some positions, setting stops, take profit targets, and amending your stops. And then, most important, installing and using custom-built indicators. Now, I do have a few custom-built indicators. I can send them to you later on in the class, and you can install them and start to use them for your trading. Gain some familiarity with moving averages. So we'll experiment with a couple of them, some of the settings that I use, some of the indicators that I use. We will create charts with moving averages, with parabolic SAR and Ichimoku. And then we'll get comfortable with moving between different time frames. We'll create some templates in line with the next slide. So you would remember in the previous session, I had explained to you some key numbers, and we'll show that to you in a minute. So using those numbers, start to get familiar with creating a one-day trend on the M5 chart, which is basically a 324 period moving average on the M5. Then you can just flick the same chart onto an M15 and it'll show you a 3-day trend, a specific trading strategy, a 3x3. And you might want to set that up on your daily chart as a start. So just to revise, these were the kind of settings, how we would play with those charts. So one-day trend line is a 324 period EMA. And once you've created the template, you can just flick that same template to an M15 and look at a 3-day trend, and then flick the same template into a H4 and look at a 54-day trend line. So those are just some of the numbers. You'll obviously get familiar with it, but once you start to create your basic templates, it will become second nature to you. Okay, so without much ado, let's get into the charts. I'll show you how to download. I'll show you some of the key signals and templates, and then we'll come back here for some questions and answers, whatever is there. All right. Here we are. That's MetaTrader 4 platform. We'll change this to English. We'll install it on Windows. So you'll get a sign that says it's downloading, and there it goes. So once it's done, you open that folder. And MetaTrader 4 setup, you just install it, double click right from there. And it spends a bit of time it next asks us to set, so you agree to the license. Now you can choose to trade MetaTrader 4 using a web terminal as well, in which case that can be there. Now you can open a demo account right here, okay? So if you open a demo account, you can say, and so we can open a new account. And what this will give you is your user ID and password, right? So you can copy that whole screen to a clipboard and save it somewhere, because you will need all of this for a new account. All right, so that was very simple. We open an account. Let me show you broadly what's happening on that screen. So this is what the MetaTrader 4 account now looks like. We have here, we have all of these, we have 4 screens that it shows you right there. So, so as we go, you can see over here, it tells you the account number. It says it's a demo account. And then you have the option, here is your window. You have 4 currencies that you can track at any point in time. You have a symbol window. So for instance, this is Euro, US, British pound, and US yen. Now, I'm not interested in any of these, so I can shut these for the moment. So I can just go there and close these windows. And let's say I'm only interested in the Aussie US. So I can enlarge the screen, and then I can go right up here to the Aussie US right there. I can take that code, drag it right in, and there we are. That's the Aussie US. So 6509, 6510, that's the current code. So once I do that, I can shut this off. Now, you'll see in this, there are other things available as well. For instance, you could have traded Microsoft, you could trade AMD, Intel, NVIDIA. So MetaTrader 4 is not just for Forex. You can trade other pairs. It really depends on what your broker is offering you at that point in time. Moving down, you have accounts. So right now, it's a MetaTrader 4. This is telling you, this is the account I'm using. That's the account which is available right here. And if you hover on that a little bit, it'll pop up and it'll tell you how much money you own. So for instance, against that, we can read it's Nest Holdings. It's a MetaQuotes Limited account, and it has $100,000 in US. So that's essentially the account balance. You can run into that and look at it. Now I'm going to just shut this down. Okay. Now let's look at some of the other things. So you have indicators. So you forget subscriptions. They have indicators. So there are different indicators. Once again, you can take these indicators and just drag them here. So for instance, here you have adapted, average, Bollinger Bands, envelopes. So let's take moving average. Okay, so let's say this is a moving average. You can drag this right here, and it'll ask you, what kind of moving average do you want? So you can say, well, I want just a 30 period moving average. It's simple, and I don't want to shift. Maybe I'll shift it by 20 periods. And that's how you would draw that, right? So that comes up there. And then you can modify these. So you can just take this moving average. Let's say this one here, you can right click there and you can delete it. It's that simple, okay? So now you have a 30 period moving average. And this is visible on an H1. So that's a 1 hour right there. Now, down below here in this, you have essentially a value of your trade. So for instance, it tells you that you have free margin of 100,000, equity of 100. Excuse me. So typically, how would you enter a trade? Let's say this is 65.10, right? And let's assume for a moment I want to take a long. So what I want to do is buy. You accept that and you say, okay, I'm going to buy. You bought, and that's it. And see that now this top line over here, not all the fields are visible. So you can see, you can do columns, and you can say, I want to see the market value or you can right click here and show additional columns. So for instance, you can do, you can look at your swap points. So that, we covered swap points last in the previous session. That's a profit only of, here, let's take another trade. So let's say I want to take a serious trade and I want to add a comment line with it to allow me to remember in future. So you can take an ID, so it gives you a ticket ID. And then you can also show columns like, for instance, you can add a column for comments, right? Now, I'll tell you how comments works. So let's assume this one trade I wanted to take. Let's disable one-click trading. And let's get to trading. And you say, I want to buy. Now, you can do either a buy limit or a sell stop, or you can just enter a new order. All right. So let's say I want to enter a new order. It says here I want to buy Aussie versus the US. It's at the market. And let's say this is $100,000. So let's say I enter a $100,000 trade. So that's leverage of 1:1. So I enter $100,000 and my stop loss in this case is, let's say it's at 65. So 0.6490. Or maybe let's go a little lower. Oh, 6490, that's fine. And let's say I want to take a profit of 100 pips on this. So my profit level would be 0.6612, right? So that's 100. Now, in this column, just to keep myself, in this column, what I can do is enter the kind of trade I'm taking. So I can say this is along with the 27-day trend. Okay. And so I enter this right there. I can say buy at the market price. And that's, you can see that that's the market price. So you can set it up right there. And there it goes. So now you have another trade, which is a lot size of 1. And you can see the comment here. Another comment is quite valuable. As you start to trade, you'll see various kinds of strategies. You can adopt multiple strategies. You can have shorts and longs at the same time. And it's useful for you to remember which kind of strategy you're trading with. So if you enter a column, if you enter a comment over here, you will know exactly what kind of trade you're taking. And it tells you the time it was done. Later on, you'll see this much later. When you close the trade, you'll be able to see the history. So right now in the history, there's no closed trades. There's just a balance of $100,000. And we only have open exposures, and all of them are long right now. And then there's other columns which I don't really use much, but you can play around with that. So that's the trade column, right? And you can close this and you can open it up later at any time. So let's shut these down. Now I want to take you through another very important bit. So the color scheme of the charts is very confusing over here. So let's go back to a daily chart, okay? So let's pick a daily chart right there. There is a time frame of daily. So those are the daily prices. And let's zoom in, right? So there we are. That's the daily price currently. Now this green and white doesn't really work. So what you do is you right click on this chart and you go right down and you select properties, okay? Now, let's continue to have a black background because it helps display the chart well. But our bar up will be green and our bar down will always be a red. And your bull candle is always a green. And your bear candle is always a red, okay? So now notice, this becomes much easier for us to see. It's visually much better on the eye. And then your bid price line, I like to set this as yellow because the bid and the offer is different. So here you'll see this very clearly light up on a black screen. It just makes it easier for us to see. And your stop levels are in red. You can choose. you can have red or you can have white. So every stop loss of yours will show up in another color on the screen. Okay. Now in the common, you can go, you certainly want candlesticks. You can choose to shift your charts. It gives you a little space. So this is what it does. It shifts your charts a little bit to the left. I like to do that. And it gives me a little space on the right so that I'm not squinting right next to the price. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so now you can see this is how the chart would appear, and that's probably a good way to start to navigate it. So we've learned how to open, and now you'll see my stop loss was at 65. Now what I can do is I can take this and literally drag it to see if I wanted to change this. So if I modify this and I say my stop loss, I think 64 is too tight. I'm going to set my stop loss at 63 cents because the market's going up, right? So I set it at that, and notice it comes right down. I can't see it there. There it is. So that's another way of navigating this chart. You can just get down there, hold your mouse and drag it, and you can get right there. So that's one way. You can also take this price and drag it up visually so that you can set it at a place. So I would choose to settle it here because I'm looking back right up to April. And right now it's in September, right? So for the last 6 months, the lowest price, I can scan this right from April to now. And I can see that the lowest price is somewhere around this level. So that should be a pretty good stop level to hold. Okay, so that's roughly how you navigate it. Now let's shut this down and let's go back and look at some other things. So Market Watch, again, shows you some other currencies. Now, once I've set this, a useful thing for us to do is to take this, right click, and save this as a template so we don't have to do this all over again. Okay, so I'm going to save it as a template. And so a list of templates is there. So let's call it my daily with a 30 SMA. So that tells me exactly what kind of chart it is, right? So that's a daily with a 30 SMA. I've saved that. Now let's assume, for instance, we finished with this and we want to try another one. So let's look at now, say you want to trade the euro. Okay, so you take the euro, you drag it there. And so see, the template stays intact. You'll always get that available. Let's look at where Microsoft is trading. There we go. Microsoft is right there. So that's the 30 period. So that's a 30-day moving average. It's a proxy for a month. A lot of people do that. I like to trade 27 days, not 30, but many people could do 30. That works equally well. So that's essentially how you would do that. Let's see, which are the other things I can show you. So there's a strategy tester. I haven't used it much, but that works too. Now, let's open the navigator, and you'll find that there are various indicators over here. Now, this is really where you could program your own indicators and add them. So I have a number of custom-built indicators. Typically, when I email them to you, this is where you would need to install them. And we'll get to that later. First, let's set up the charts. Let's set up a basic chart. And then we can add another indicator. So for instance, insert. So here it is. So you look at insert and you have various indicators available. So if you had a Williams percentage R, you could add it. And then you have an option to set it. I normally set my Williams percentage R at 13. And it gets added down below because it's an oscillator, right? So we'll come to that later. Then the other one that we often use will be Ichimoku. So tools, So you add an indicator, and you could do a trend indicator. You have numerous ones: double exponential moving average, envelopes. Here's Ichimoku, right? So you could add an Ichimoku, and then it'll ask you for what are the settings. Now, I typically set it at, well, let's go with the standard one first, and then we'll cover mine. So 9, 27, and 54. Okay. And then what that does is it gives you sort of a cloud. It tells you exactly what's happening. It's a very useful indicator, very powerful. We'll cover this in more detail in some of our classes. Then some other indicators that I use are, you could use Bollinger Bands. That's another very nice one. Parabolic SAR. So here it is. I make extensive use of the parabolic SAR. So when you're looking at a parabolic SAR, you get in there and you have a slow setting and a fast setting. So my yellow setting, as described in my book, is 006. And then the faster one is the 4 times that. So it will be a 024. And then I normally display that in yellow, or if you choose, you can do it in orange. And you can then also say, well, I want it visualized in every time frame or only a few. So let's leave it as all time frames for the moment. So you get a parabolic SAR. That's how that indicator looks. And I generally use 2. So if I have another indicator, I would say, let's have an indicator called another parabolic SAR. And what I normally do is I have this one in magenta. So that's a magenta, and this is a 003 and a 024. Sorry, 003 and 012. So that's 4 times the slow number, right? Now let's go back to the Aussie US, because these indicators are all only on the Aussie. I've said before, my indicators only work on the Aussie US. So if you're testing it on other pairs, just make sure you backtested it enough. And so I'm going to just drag this and see what's happening with the Aussie right now. So broadly, that's how you would set it up. And now that we have this new chart, we'll say, let's save this as a template. So we're going to save template, and we'll call this a little different. Let's call this, so we have the daily right now. This one is an hourly chart, or an M30. So we'll call it the H1, whatever you choose to call it, maybe H1 SAR. And you can choose whatever you decide to. So we'll call this H1 SAR, and so that now that's saved. But this is now operating on a different time frame. So to really make sure you don't make a mistake with this, make sure that the time frame you selected is not D1 but H1. And so now if you look at this, you'll see that it's dropped below the SAR. So right now it's down. And this to me is a down signal. So notice, for instance, at this point in time, the Aussie dollar has dropped below the SAR, it's dropped below the 30-day or 30-hour moving average. It's dropped below the Ichimoku, and it's trading down here. So this typically in my system would be a short. Okay. So those are just some very quick in things just to get you started. Play around with it, get familiar with it. It's quite easy once you get used to it, but do remember to play around and save many templates. Now, you can take the same chart and look at it in different time frames. For instance, if you look at this one, this is a 30-minute, so that just changes the time frame. There's a 15-minute chart. You can go down to a 5-minute chart, and you can go down even to a 1-minute chart. Okay. So depending on which one, and then going up, you have a 4-hour chart, and then you have a daily. Then as you keep going up, that's a weekly, and then that's a monthly chart. So I'm going to insert here an indicator, And I'm going to insert a trend line. I'm going to insert a moving average. And I'm going to insert a 324. Remember, 324 divided by 12 gives us 27 hours. So I'm trying to get a proxy for when the daily trend shifted, but I always shift my charts a little bit forward, and we'll come to that later. Don't worry about that. And this is an exponential, but instead of a low, this is a close, and we will draw this on a plum-shaped chart. So that's a moving average, right? Now, I like to actually trade an envelope. It just makes it a little cleaner because it shows me. So I'm going to add another line. And this is probably the first indicator that you need to get comfortable with, because we'll go further in this trading session today, and I'll show you how this is done. So the previous one we drew was an exponential close. This time we will trail the high prices. So we'll apply the high price of every day or every 5 minutes and plot another moving average. So notice it's slightly higher, right? Because the high prices are obviously higher than the mid price. And then I'm going to add another one. And give you a moving average of the low prices, right? So that's broadly the daily. And what you can do as a trading technique, it's very simple. You know, this is not the trend. This is just a moving average. We can adopt as a technique. Let's say, okay, if I want to trade with the daily, I would take a long at this price when prices start to cross this moving average. So I could enter a trade at 65.20. That's the price right there. If you can see on the right, 65.20, right? I can enter at 65.20, and I would have carried it all the way, and I will still be in the money, which means from 65.20, I'm now sitting at 65.53, right? I've made 30 pips on this trade. And if I was to trail my stop at the moving average, my stop is higher than my entry price at 65.44. So even if the stop loss hits, I would have made 24 pips.
Help me understand. You have clicked here on M5, right? This is on
Correct.
M5.
Correct.
And what is M5? Is it what if you have to just remember M5, what M and 5 would mean here?
Forget M, just remember 5. 5 is 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes. So 5 M or 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, 5 minutes. So M5
Okay.
is M 5 minutes. 5M, 5 minutes.
And
M15 is
these are real minutes. There is no Sunil math here, or this is
no.
just real.
These are real
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Got it.
These are real minutes. Okay. So
Okay.
M5. So essentially, if you divide, so how many M5s or 5 minute bars are there in 1 hour? It's 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So if you take 324, that is our moving average, and you divide it by 12,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get 27 hours.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Got it? So there's a
Yeah,
topic.
actually, one thing I struggle with is when you look at this chart, right? It's like you are, in hindsight, you can make a trade, say, I would enter here and I would have exited here. But
Yeah.
in reality, obviously, if you are at a certain hour where you're saying you're entering, you don't have the view to the right side of it because it hasn't happened.
Okay.
So, so if I look at the, let's say the far end of this chart, which is at the, on the right side,
Yeah.
and say there's and yeah, exactly, like here. And
Mm-hmm.
now you're thinking about, okay, where do I, in this example that you were giving, what do I do if I had to place a trade or not place a trade? That's the part I'm struggling to understand.
Okay. All right. So let's take the same chart and let's assume your trading strategy is very simple. I'm just going to trade a moving average, period. Okay. I'm not going to worry about it. I want a very simple trading strategy. And maybe that's a good way to start learning trading. Okay. Now you say, well, I made enough money. Friday is over. Monday, I have no idea what's going to happen. So I am on Monday. I think the Aussie is going to fall, right? If you take that view, you could today on Friday's closing hours place a stop sell at 65.43, which means if the price dips below 65.43, you're automatically in a short trade.
Yeah.
And
But
then
there's a question. What's the driver for that decision? How are you thinking about that decision?
Purely you might think it's going to fall, and if you think it's going to fall, that's what you would do.
So Sunil, you're taking at 65.43, not at like the point which it ended. What is it? 65? I can't see on the screen, but is it 65.55? Like,
no, so that's the current price.
oh,
Yeah.
that's the current price. Yeah, okay.
Right. But here, what you're doing is your trading strategy. I'm taking a very simple example. Let's say you're only trading a 27-hour moving average. Yeah. You would take a stop sell then at 65.43. And if that was your strategy, that's what you would do today. You would say, well, come Monday, I'm going to do this. Now, Monday, you might be asleep. The trade may not hit. It's your chances. And that's the way to handle it, because you cannot be glued to the screen 24/7.
Yeah. Where you said you'll take a short, you obviously don't know of the future at that point. What's the trigger on deciding that you'll take a short there? What's the decision maker there?
Excellent question. That's phenomenal. So that's your system. You've said you've looked at this pattern over the past so many days. There's a YouTube trailer. We call it 28 days, and it's called The Baseball Scene. So Sandra Bullock is in a correction facility. She's all down in the dumps, and she's got no control on her life. And she walks up to this guy who's pitching a baseball right into the tree. He's put a little big pad against the tree and he's pitching against it. And every time he's hitting square center. And so he asks her to do it. And she said, and it goes all over the place. So he says, okay, hang on. I'll tell you what to do. Stand at that line and throw it to me, but after pointing. So she actually, I'll get to the point of the story. She points at him and he says, now throw it. And so it's a little better. It doesn't go all over the place. But then the next piece is very important. He says, okay, now try the same thing, but close your eyes and throw the ball. Right? And she throws the ball and it lands smack bang in the center. And his lesson to her was, focus on the things that you can control. When you're throwing that ball, all that you can do is you can control your stance, you can control your aim, you can control your follow through, you can control the grip. How hard do you grip the ball? When do you release? But once the ball is out of your hand, you've lost complete control of it. Whether it hits the mat in front or not, it's someone else's job. It's not yours. You guys play golf, right? Same thing happens there. You focus on where you're trying to hit the ball, you'll never be able to get it right. What do you focus on? You focus on your stance, you focus on your alignment, you focus on your backswing, and you focus on your follow through. And you keep your eyes on the ball, not on the hole in front. And that's the whole point of a trading system. You've tested it enough times, you know that it works. And so all you do is you follow the process and take the trade if your system says so. And then whether you make money or not, you have no idea. You have no control on it. Sometimes you'll make money and sometimes you lose money. But your back test will tell you that by and large, out of 100 trades that you might have taken, would you make money on most of them versus lose? And that's your back test. That's the strategy that you put in your arsenal and you put it to the test in real life. But absolutely, you have no idea. There is no guarantee on where the price will go once you get to that point. And that is why we have different trading systems.
Understood. Thanks.
So generally, Sunil, most of the time, do you trade long?
No, in fact, I trade longs and shorts. Sometimes I trade 13-hour trends, and there are different techniques for doing it. So no, I'm long and short both. It all depends on what the trend is.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Thank
Okay,
you.
not
Thanks a
at all.
lot.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining in.
Thanks.
Thank you
Talk
very
again.
much.
Bye.
Not at all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.